It only took one TikTok live for Meri Brown to burn the entire Sister Wives empire to the ground. One moment, she was the quiet, often overlooked first wife. The next, she was a lightning rod, shocking millions, cracking the polished veneer of a once tightly controlled family image, and forcing even her harshest critics to say, wait, maybe she's the hero. Hi, friends, welcome back. And if you're new here, buckle up because today we're diving headfirst into the live stream that changed everything. The moment Meri Brown, after years of being dismissed, ignored, and practically erased from the narrative, finally said what so many of us suspected but never thought we'd hear out loud. She didn't hold back, and what followed was an internet explosion. A family unraveling in real time, and headlines so messy they'd make even Bravo stars blush. We're talking Robyn in tears, Kody spiraling behind locked doors, Reddit threads going full FBI mode, and ex-cast members breaking their silence after years. Suddenly, the woman once dismissed as bitter and background noise became the face of a quiet revolution. And the wildest part? She didn't even do it for attention. She did it because she couldn't breathe anymore. So grab a drink, get cozy, and settle in, because this isn't just a drama breakdown. It's an emotional reckoning, a cultural moment, and possibly the beginning of the end for the Sister Wives dynasty. Let's get into it. Before the TikTok live, before the hashtags and headlines, Meri Brown was the woman who faded quietly into the background, the original wife, the first chapter, and somehow, the first to be emotionally shelved. Longtime Sister Wives fans remember the early seasons when Meri and Kody seemed to share something sacred, even if flawed. But over the years, something unspoken began to stretch between them. It wasn't just space, it was a slow erasure. Let's not forget the catfishing scandal that turned her vulnerability into a national punchline. That wasn't just about being duped online, it was about a woman desperately reaching for connection while drowning in emotional neglect. And what did she get in return? Shame, isolation, Kody's classic cold shoulder retreat, and the subtle group dismissal masked as concern. For a while, she stayed, silenced herself, repackaged the pain into loyalty. Because when you've built your life around someone else's version of family, leaving feels like treason. But then came that TikTok live, and everything changed. Meri wasn't crying. She wasn't lashing out. She wasn't even looking for pity. She was calm, composed, focused. And that's exactly why it hit like a sucker punch. She didn't sound angry. She sounded free. The kind of free that only comes after years of feeling invisible. She said things out loud that viewers whispered about for seasons, about being used as the PR piece, about emotional manipulation, about gaslighting and exploitation. Her voice wasn't shaking, it was steady, and every word felt deliberate, like a woman who had finally decided to stop protecting people who never protected her. What stunned fans the most wasn't just what she said, it was how long she had held it in. And suddenly, all the moments we watched over the years, the awkward silence during family talks, the way Kody barely looked at her, the way Robyn's presence swallowed the air in every room, came rushing back with new clarity. This wasn't just a confession, it was a recalibration, a reclamation. And for the first time, the audience didn't see Meri as weak or bitter. They saw her as brave, because there's something earth-shattering about a woman who stops asking to be heard and starts telling her truth with no apologies. And in that moment, Meri didn't just break her silence, she broke the illusion. Within hours of Meri's TikTok live ending, the internet did what the internet does, and then some. It was like someone dropped a match into a house soaked in years of repressed truth and fan frustration. Reddit lit up first, threads with titles like, "Everything Meri Said." I saw it myself on set, and Meri was never the problem. Kody was just comfortable, started climbing fast. Anonymous former producers began posting thinly veiled confirmations of what many suspected all along. One even claimed Robyn would cry before takes until producers framed her like a saint. And if they didn't, Kody would shut down filming altogether. Meanwhile, Twitter Spaces spun into full-on symposiums. Influencers, bloggers, feminist podcasters, and even therapists were unpacking every second of Meri's confession like scholars at a cultural reckoning. Memes flooded every platform, some hilarious, others cutting. One had Robyn photoshopped onto a Monopoly board, the caption reading, "Collect $200 every time you cry and manipulate another wife." Another had Meri in dramatic lighting with the bold words, "The first, the forgotten, the free." And Robyn? She didn't sleep. In her fortress like McMansion across the state, her hair was tangled from tossing all night, her eyes sunken from doom scrolling. Every time she opened her phone, there she was, her face twisted into a meme, her tears captioned with biting sarcasm. She had worked so hard for years to curate this image, soft spoken, misunderstood, innocent, and in one 20-minute live, Meri shattered that illusion. She spied on us. That one line kept echoing in Robyn's head. Meri had seen through everything, and now so had the world. Kody? He spiraled. He'd been awake since 3 a.m., pacing like a caged animal. Robyn had tried to talk to him, to tell him they needed to go live to defend themselves. But when he saw a trending Twitter post titled, "Why We All Owe Meri Brown an Apology," he snapped. Literally. He hurled his phone against the wall so hard the screen spiderwebbed instantly. He hadn't just lost control of the narrative, he'd lost control of the family, the fan base, the myth he built. This wasn't just backlash, this was collapse. But here's what's interesting, and what no one seems to be asking enough. Why now? Why did this moment finally push fans, many of whom criticized or dismissed Meri for years, to suddenly rally around her? Because the timing was different. We were different. Fans weren't just watching a reality TV breakdown, they were seeing a reflection of their own exhaustion, of being silenced in relationships, in churches, in jobs, in families. Meri wasn't just speaking for herself, she was speaking for every woman who swallowed pain for the sake of peace. Her courage wasn't loud, but it was undeniable. And maybe, just maybe, that's what finally cracked something open in all of us. It took a long time for people to see her, but now that they do, they can't look away. Leon sat on the edge of their bed, phone buzzing nonstop with texts from strangers, old friends, and even former Sister Wives cast members they hadn't heard from in years. And the messages all said the same thing. Your mom is fierce. She made us cry. We see her now, and yet Leon's chest ached, because they'd always seen her. They'd seen her in the quiet mornings, sipping tea with eyes red from crying. They'd heard her on the phone, trying to sound okay when she clearly wasn't. They'd watched the light in her dim slowly, year after year, as she tried to make herself small enough to fit into a family structure that never truly held her. But one memory stuck the hardest. Leon was 11, and it was Valentine's Day. Kody had just pulled up to Robyn's house, arms full of flowers, roses, big and showy, with that over-the-top smile he reserved for the woman he had clearly chosen. Meri was still in the car. The door never opened for her. And when Kody came back out, laughing and empty-handed, Meri had murmured almost too softly to hear, "He forgot mine." And something inside her cracked that day. Leon had felt it, like something had snapped behind her eyes. They never forgot it. So when Meri went live and told the world what she'd been through, what she'd survived, it wasn't just vindication for Meri. It was a reckoning for every child who had watched a parent be slowly erased. For every kid who saw the gaslighting, the favoritism, the spiritual manipulation, and didn't have the words to name it yet. And that's the thing. Kids always know. They see the tears behind closed doors. They hear the silences that echo louder than shouting. They know when love feels conditional, when presence feels performative. For Leon, this wasn't just a media moment. It was the culmination of a lifetime spent watching their mother bend until she nearly broke. And now, they were watching her stand. What does that mean for the next generation? It means maybe the cycle ends here. Maybe the daughters and sons and non-binary kids raised in systems of silence finally get to speak. Maybe Meri's voice, late as it was, arrived just in time for the rest of them to find their own. While the internet buzzed and the fan base rallied behind the scenes at TLC, there was absolute panic. Executives were caught completely off guard. They'd expected another quiet, underwhelming season. Maybe a few teary confessionals, a sprinkle of Coyote Pass drama, and Kody doing his usual performance of misunderstood patriarch. What they got instead was a full blown narrative detonation. Producers were reportedly in emergency Zoom meetings within hours of the TikTok live. The headline: Meri Brown goes viral, and not in the way we can control. She wasn't following a script. She wasn't being mic'd up. She wasn't consulting their PR team. She had taken her voice back, and people were actually listening. Ratings had been in steady decline for seasons. Viewers were tired of watching a man slowly alienate his family while TLC tiptoed around the truth. But now, they had lightning in a bottle. One showrunner reportedly said, "Let's shift the focus. Give Meri her own platform. We'll make her the story. Finally." The irony, right? After years of being sidelined, muted, framed as the bitter ex, she was suddenly the headline. And not because the network decided she mattered, but because she did it herself. Enter Worthy Up Mary's personal platform, part podcast, part empowerment movement, part real time healing. No camera crew, no script, just raw honesty. She wasn't playing to the camera anymore. She was speaking as if no one had ever listened before. And maybe that's what made her so powerful. Her vulnerability wasn't polished, it was cracked and bruised and real. She admitted to doubting herself. She talked about losing everything: her marriage, her sense of home, her identity. But through that loss, she found clarity. She didn't do this for fame, one fan wrote in a now viral tweet. She did it because she was out of breath. And that's the part TLC could never script. You could feel it in the way she spoke. Not like someone trying to prove herself, but like someone who finally realized she didn't have to. She wasn't angry, though she had every right to be. She wasn't vengeful, she was free. And that hit harder than any explosive tell-all ever could. So now, while Kody hides in his study and Robyn rewatches old episodes, trying to piece together where it all went wrong, Meri is doing something radical. She's living. The woman who was once the footnote is now the focal point. The first wife is now the final word. And in the very house where she used to cry into cold tea and unanswered prayers, she's now building a platform that belongs entirely to her. No edits, no spin, just Meri, finally heard. As the dust settled from the TikTok chaos, Meri's newfound freedom seemed to inspire a wave of change among the sister wives. The next major headline: Meri and Janelle, after years of hanging on to the dream of Coyote Pass, finally let it go. This wasn't just about land. No, it was about more than that. The financial implications were huge. After all, the property was supposed to be a shared family dream, the ultimate symbol of their collective future. But in the end, it was more of a prison. The acres of land that once held promises of unity, harmony, and a vision of growing old together now stood as a painful reminder of everything they lost and never gained. Selling Coyote Pass wasn't just an economic decision. It was an emotional release. Meri and Janelle, in particular, had spent years pouring money into a dream that was never going to materialize. The land, once full of possibility, became a weight, a symbol of the silence they had been forced to live under for far too long. They sold the land, one Twitter user noted. But what they really sold was their silence. By relinquishing Coyote Pass, they were saying, no more. No more holding on to a fantasy that was never ours. And for the first time in years, both women seemed lighter. Janelle, especially, had become the picture of resilience, showing up in social media posts that made it clear she was moving on. The financial burden was gone, but so was the emotional toll. The constant tension of fighting for space in a polygamous arrangement that clearly favored one wife over the others, especially in the eyes of the public, was finally over. This wasn't just a sale, it was a reclamation. By letting go of the land, Meri and Janelle were reclaiming something far more important than property: their autonomy. And for fans, it felt like a victory. One by one, the wives were finding their voices, and the story of sister wives was finally starting to shift. After years of emotional and financial investment, Meri and Janelle finally made the decision to sell Coyote Pass, the land that had long been the center of their collective dream. For so long, the property represented the future of the family, a place where they could all build homes side by side, living out their vision of unity. But instead, It became a symbol of everything that wasn't working: the emotional strain of trying to make a life that didn't fit, the constant tension of competing for Kody's attention, and the deepening sense of isolation. The financial implications of this move were huge. The land wasn't just a dream, it was an anchor that had been draining their resources for years. But as they signed those papers and let go of the property, something more profound shifted. It wasn't just about money, it was about reclaiming their lives. No longer tied to the failed vision of Coyote Pass, they could finally breathe. In a way, they were letting go of the past, but also of the silence that had kept them tethered to a toxic narrative. They sold the land, but what they really sold was their silence, one fan tweeted. It hit home because, in that moment, Meri and Janelle were doing something that many fans had been waiting for. They were taking back control. In letting go of Coyote Pass, they weren't just freeing themselves from financial strain. Thanks and take care yourself.